This is the New Education Show with Dean Bell and Dean Kevin. Hi, Wendy. Yes. Okay, do you have news for us this week? Anything, any updates this week? I think you said you were going to talk about something else to this time. Continuation of last week.
Oh yeah, sure. I can talk about that. Actually, we're dealing with quite a bit of it today. Well, basically, just it's kind of in a nutshell, is there. My second husband, he's an alcoholic and also takes prescription pills most of the time when he's really deep in his hole, when he relapses. So I did divorce a few years ago. I kind of just, a lot of things led up to it, and then we spent a year apart going through the co-parenting and new friend stage, seeing if he could remain sober and abide by the legality issues that were kind of intertwined into the divorce. Legality restrictions, basically surrounding around his sobriety and et cetera, and the children. So that's something that we don't often talk about, but it plays a really, really important part in, it's a massive, massive thing in our life, because after that year of moving out of our home that we bought together and moving out, relocating the children, spent a year away from the home. We bought a 40-foot bus and began to convert it into a tiny home. We were going to travel. We had extensive, very, very detailed plans of the interior, where we were traveling around this, around the United States and so forth. And very, very, very a lot of stuff that we went through in that whole year, because in that year that we moved out, I quickly bought the boat and we began to gut it ourselves, the children and I. And we were really excited for that new journey. However, at the tail end of that journey, some things happened, and we were not able to finish the school bus. So we were faced with quite an important decision to make as a family on what we were going to do, because there was it's a long story, but there was a lot of things that happened, and we ended up, after going through and making the decision as a family to move back to our home with their father, my ex, obviously we had just gone through a divorce. We were in a better place, because with the divorce, there was a lot of legal conditions surrounding around parameters and things like that in protection of the children and so forth. Very restrictive for me as well, because I tried to negotiate for being able to move out of this specific county, having a little bit more freedom, but I didn't get as much freedom as I'd like. But the main thing that I fought for and did get, the number one thing, I forfeit everything to get the schooling right of all the children. So this plays a really important role to let people, or just to share in general, if anyone's, following this and they have children as well. I know a lot of the people in this particular call, I think your children are either grown or you don't have children at all. So it plays a massive role in our life since moving back here about 3.5 years ago, because the divorce, it's all public record. You can search it online and all that. But it's been a few years now that we've been back here, but we are still in the cycle that I filed divorce to get out of. However, the cycle is different, because the children are trained and talked through and provided outlets and educated on the alcoholic cycle. They're a bit more involved now because they're not as young. So they are able to see a lot of the patterns and how the cycle goes. For example, we can usually tell when he's about to relapse, and then there is a pattern that he follows when he does relapse. There are specific things that he will begin to do, like, for instance, he'll be in the beer for a while, and then he'll move into the wine. And then when he's in the wine phase, we know he starts to take pills. And when he's doing the wine and pills, we know that that soon leads into the liquor. And then once the liquor comes, he'll only have a little bit of that torture to himself before he's ready to detox. So just to go into explaining that little, not so little thing that we make the choice to be intertwined in a sense, but we are extremely guarded. There's parameters and things within the house that we have set with him. There are there's boundaries that have been put in place by the children and I with him. So there's an understanding of the cohabitating and the way that we all live together and make it work for the best situation for us all. The abuse that was happening, like verbal and mental abuse that he was doing to me prior, after the divorce, that does not happen. So I don't encounter all of that anymore, which all of that was really hard on me with little young infant and toddlers to go through that cycle, in addition to have to go through his relapsing cycle all the time year round, because there's specific times that he'll relapse. And it's really a never ending cycle, one that at first I really didn't understand it. And then 2 years into getting to know him, I really began to see, oh my gosh, I've spent 2 years with this person. I'm just now seeing he hit it so well. And then I was invested so deep at that point. So most will ask, why didn't you just get out sooner? Why did you have children with him? So we really keep it private because we've been through so many years. We're going on 12 years of this with him. So that's just kind of what I wanted to tap into. Some people see our life as being hunky-dory, sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops, when in fact what happens behind closed doors is extremely different. And the way that we deal with it, we've had to go step by step, baby steps, and there's a lot of emotion and working through things mentally and discussing things and working as a family together. So I just wanted to share that because it adds a little bit of depth for you all to understand that we're in this cycle of understanding. And here's the thing, it offers a really great, I tell the children all the time when we do have well checks and things like that, which are weekly, I tell them, how are you feeling about this and that, and yada yada. And I always leave the door open for them to say, Mom, I don't know if I can, I just always encourage them to really say exactly how they're feeling. And for instance, let's give you one example, okay? One of the friends was over here playing the day before yesterday, and their father is not well right now, meaning he's in the hole. When he's in the hole, that means he's not well. When he's not well, that really means that he's relapsed, and he's basically staying on his side of the house, which this is a pretty big house. So you're probably wondering, gosh, we probably live in close parameters, but we don't. This is a 7.5 bedroom house. We're on over an acre, which for me, that's a lot of land. It might not be for some people, but this is a lot for us to maintain as far as the yard and the garden and everything. So the little girl Willow and Parker, I've talked about her before, wanted to go on a bike ride. I was in the middle of making dinner and doing some laundry. And so I told Raymond, Daddy says that he wants to get up and do exercise. So he has offered for him to go on this bike ride with Parker and Willow. But Raymond, I need you, if you would kindly, if you'd like to, could you go and assist and make sure that Parker, our neighbor's child, and Willow are okay on this bike ride, because the condition that their father is in right now, he barely can walk and barely can stand. If you've ever seen someone extremely belligerent and inebriated, that's probably what the vision you need to put in your mind when I'm saying that. So for him to be getting on a bike, we've learned after all these years, we do not stop him from doing what he chooses to do. These are his decisions, his choices. We have tried many things and, trial and error with addicts and alcoholics. So it's also my stepdaughter. She is a meth, heroin, and crack addict. Actually, she used to live with. We've seen basically she's been a boomerang child, and she's come in and out of our home through the past 12 years. And me being her step parent, I usually wouldn't exactly have a full on say. But long story short, they've seen her kind of, in and out of her phases as well and her cycles. So they've been able. So what I want you guys to kind of understand is that the children have a lot more life training than you would really, than one would assume that they would, because they've gotten to see into such intimate, in-depth addictions and the cycles around them. And most people, that's why we really keep to ourselves, and we have to interview and kind of figure out who really can we have in our lives that we can trust, because they don't understand the dynamic, and that the children are protected, and that I do protect them, and so forth, and that it's not an abusive environment. If they don't, then I don't trust certain people, because CPS is really a 3-letter word that just is not really doing a lot of good. So you always want to be cautious of people in general. So the children have a lot more training than the usual set of children if you were to put them on a lineup. They have a lot more empathy. They are being trained in an environment to understand cycles of abuse, to to alcohol, to drugs. They're understanding how people's behavior are. They're being able to understand like manipulation, but not in a negative way. Manipulation in the way of Jeff saying to her something, and she goes, "Oh, okay, Daddy. Okay, sure." She understands now not to negate and debate with him, just go with the flow and kind of manipulate her way out of. And some might see that as like a negative thing, but everything's a double-edged sword. Everything's dualistic. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. For me, I see these opportunities for my children to see such an in-depth, intimate part into these people who have such a hold on their illness, whether you want to call it an illness, their addiction, what have you, to these types of things like drugs and alcohol. It's a very, very challenging, but very well worth experience to see into. So for an example, she went on that bike ride and Ray was there. Ray comes back, Daddy has a bloody knee, and Willow kind of walks up and she says, "Mom, I thought he was going to die." Remember, Willow is 6. He fell 3 times. He tumbled into the ditch. It's not such a good idea for Daddy to go on bike rides anymore. I think I'm going to tell him no next time, that I just want to go with my brother and Parker alone. And I said, "That's a really great decision for you, Willow. I'm sorry that you saw Daddy tumble. Why don't y'all go, do doctor and bandage up his knee for him?" He walks in the door. I look at him. I say, "All right?" And he's sludging his words. And I said, "Well, Jeff, they're gonna bandage you up, and then I think you should go lie down." And then they bandaged him up. They got to play nurse, really easy breezy. He goes to the back and goes back to his cave. That's what we call it. And then off he went to go to sleep and to do what he does back there. That's just an example to give you. There's so many more, but that's kind of what I wanted to unravel, because I don't usually ever discuss it publicly, nor do we tell people who are involved in our lives as far as being friends or co-op meetups or homeschooling families or wild schooling families that we meet up with. We usually keep it really quiet on our inside life, because it's not everyone's business, number one. And number two, people really, if they're not on the inside of it, it's a challenge for them with their ideas and their own set of thoughts around it, and their own backgrounds and information that they're coming from, for them to see how well we've come with him, and how adjusted the lifestyle is that we have, and that we did trudge through quite a bit of mud to get to where we're just walking in grass now, just to use the analogy there, that we did all trudge through a bit of mud. And if it was not for the legal side of things, which I'm extremely grateful to be divorced, this would be a very different set of everything going on. So that's in a nutshell. I kind of just thought that it was about time that I shared that these children that are being, life schooled, new schooled, homeschooled, they have a lot more than what we've ever told before. They have a lot more that they're experiencing and going through at such young ages. I'm not saying that if you line up 10 families that 5 are not dealing with some type of abuse or their family members aren't dealing with some type of narcotic or alcohol abuse or whatnot. But in the particular bubble area that we live in, it is not common in the area that we live in. So there are areas where it's prevalent and it's like 9 out of 10 are dealing with it. And then there are areas where it is not common, where it's 1 out of 10 are. We would be that one family out of the 10 in our area that we live in. So that's just to sum it up. Sorry it took so long, but just wanted to kind of get it out there. In the well checks, I often tell them at any point we are ready to up and move if they make the choice to do that. It's a family decision for what we're willing to continue to tolerate and to live within. And every time that I discuss it with the children and we weigh things out and discuss things, it ends up where we're content and all is fine, and this is where we are, and this is the decision. But keep in mind, it's always on the table and the ducks are in a row at any moment's notice that we don't feel that this is conductive, that this is healthy for us, that we will scoot on with our life and head out. We've going through that bus experience and getting it to where we were literally almost about to literally get on the road and be a tiny homeschooling family. We were ready. We've been through a lot of training and experience so far that at any time we're ready to, we know that this isn't it. So what's great about that is that we're not held to, and we're not restricted in ideas of, oh, we can't leave daddy, oh, this would be awful, or all these ideas of my marriage vows, which held me really, really in a restrictive state. So it was really very, very freeing to get to where I was ready to file, and I did file, and to go through that process. I was very grateful to have gotten to that place because that's what needed to be. So, and that's what is. So I'll just leave it right there. So there we go.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, I was just going to say in response to what you were talking about, Wendy, that I imagine that obviously one day will come time when you probably will have to move on with your children. Because it's a bit like Duane with Heather, how he said that regardless of the individuals we're in, and regardless of the choices, regardless of the individuals we're in our experience with, and regardless of the specifics of their ideas and what they are deciding, if their decisions and their choices are very much creational based and they don't intend to become more aware, then we do have a tendency then to have to move on and leave them behind, because obviously if we want to retain them in our experience, then we are basically on the same ideas that they are, that will have us the effects of, and then we are rather sticking ourselves in creation also and sabotaging our own processes of awareness and standing more so with the true reality life is and such. So I suppose so ultimately if your ex-husband has no intention of moving along with his process, then I suppose ultimately you will have to leave him behind, regardless of his behaviour or how it develops over time.
Oh yes, I understand. Yes, we've discussed all that. In addition, he's approaching 64, 65, so he's at the time when I married him, he didn't look or act that number, but he ages quite a bit when he goes into his whole but the children, he's tired, he's really tired, and he's kind of he's exhausted. So in a sense, yeah, we understand, and we just take it minute by minute. The other thing is he's respectful of where the children and I are. And so our lives do not collide like that anymore. It used to very much so, which was part of why the divorce was needed. But things used to collide like that. So in a sense, I understand Duane and Heather, but our situation isn't quite the same, obviously. But more so, he leaves us to do our life. And we have spent all these years being able to figure out a nice flow, which has taken a lot on my end. But there's so much ebb and flow with the co-parenting, cohabitating, that it's been very pleasant in that sense when he's sober. But he doesn't dabble in our choices, what we do on the daily basis, what our schooling is. He no longer has a say in any of that, nor is there a tug of war anymore. So in the sense of that, he does not really collide in what our position is and where we are going. He respects where we are and what we're doing. He just is that couch potato who watches the TV and does what the TV says. And he is such a great example for the children, because I'm able to use the way he is. Like, he's the first one to line up to go get this vaccine, didn't question anything in it, didn't care. He lined up, he went and got it. He went and got the second one. He looks at me and says, I don't care what's in it, I'm going to go get it. They told me it's my turn, I'm going. It's a great example. And in the sense also that we learn a lot from him and from his ways. And the children, I'm able to help them to say, so for an example, when he did that, I took the children, I said, I want y'all to know, Daddy went and got the vaccines. Keep in mind, this is Daddy's choice. This is his choice. No matter what we say to him, that will be his choice. That is his journey. That is his awareness. That is where he is at right now. And that is to be so. We will not negate with him. We will not debate. We will not, think that he's going to be one of the one who dies, or has horrible reactions. We take this in right now as he did what his choice was and what his awareness level is. And that is to be so. And that just is. And they understand that. And then they'll ask questions, and then I walk them through it. So that's just an example to let you know that I understand what you're saying. And all of that is always in the air for us, and it's always open for discussion and always an option. So we just stay in our present nowness in this moment as much as we possibly can from a mental, feeling, one-dimensional place. But they as well understand the concept, which is, I had a big, fear there for a little while, thinking it took me so long to grasp this. How can I teach them this? This is such a very big thing to grasp. Time, the present nowness, everything's happening at once, actually, realities, all of that stuff. So they do very well with it, though. But I'll finish there.
Yeah, I wanted to interject what I went through too, briefly. I had a tumultuous personal life too, with 3 marriages and 4 kids. And you can imagine there's a lot going on there with the drama and everything. I pretty much gave the child rearing to the women just to save the relationship, which probably wasn't the greatest thing to do, because the kids, grew up however, but I kind of gave in to the women just because, again, I wanted to save what was left of the family with at least one of the relationships. But as I look back, it was whatever, but now they see what I'm doing now, and I'd say that's a demonstration of what they could be looking to get out of whatever position they're in. If it's not, of a benefit for them right now, they could see what I'm doing. At least that I gave to them. Duane talks about raising his daughter to be able to survive here. I'm not sure I did that with my kids. But we had some fun. Just one of my wives, her mother we had a lot of drama there. Her mother once got mad at the husband. She took all his important papers. He worked for NASA, threw them in the fireplace and burned them, those files. In the meantime, the house caught on fire and it burned down. And that's the kind of stuff that's going on there. There's a lot of drama in my life too. So, but I came out of it, and the way I see it is they see what I'm doing now. Especially I wrote a book, so they're going back to look at the book and my life and how it went. So at least that is there for them to see if they want to go have a step further into becoming more aware.
What I found, I think she's a teacher like me, and always I think, how can I help kids? They are very ready to be free, and it's hard for me to answering my question, because their family are very different, and I can't say um, what I think it's true to them.
It's difficult these days, and this Wendy's providing an example of how you can get through it. That it's really difficult raising kids. I mean, with what we have going on now. My parents were too involved in the World War II. After that, it was also hard raising kids in the aftermath of the war. I was like a baby boomer, born in '50, in a displacement camp. There was no place for kids really, but it was, kids were born. But today it's even worse, I'd say, because of all the control factor and what they're trying to do to depopulate the world. So commend you, Wendy, for what you're doing.
Thank you for sharing, Val, and thank you for those kind words. There is a lot going on. It is so much going on that I cannot handle a certain amount of news outlets and resources and platforms in a specific day anymore, because it took me down so many exhausting paths that were quite scary, in the sense where I would get extremely tired of being here, which is challenging when you're a parent, because you've got these 3 little ones staring at you all the time. Not really, I'm using that as an exaggeration, but you've got a good portion of your day that you make the choice, or some don't, to be part of the small amount of time that we're actually with them. So I often tell the children that as well. When, Mom, why do you take pictures and record everything, video stuff, and record them? And I just tell them, I just do. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I only have such a small amount of time with them. And then they'll be on about their ways, like your children, Val. So it's almost like, so to go back to Kevin really quick, Kevin, I know there's knowing for me that all is fine, in the sense that we are where we need to be, the children and I. However, should that occasion arise, we are prepared. Meaning we wouldn't be devastated. There wouldn't be a lot of drama around it. It would be something we prepared for. So that's why I always train them to be prepared and to take these ideas into their mind as something that could be so. The more that they're trained on information, ideas, and etc., the less devastation, emotional trauma, aftermath that could occur, because they've already been prefaced. It's already been explained. For instance, just wanted to say that it is. I did start to write a book, and I did get pretty far, like I'm really glad you wrote a book for your children, Val, because that's exactly what I began to do when I realized I wish I had been documenting all this from the beginning, because now I'm just going off of memory, and my memory after childbirth is just not good. But it's a lot. And should they choose the path to learn more, then that will be their path, you know? So yeah, there's a lot going on. It's exhausting here. There is a massive amount of information come in. There is a massive amount of creation in one daily basis going on here. It is an absolute circus show. And then to be raising the children in it, it's just, they are having to process 1,000 times more data than we did, or rather I did as a child, you know, and even going into the teens, Raymond going into his teens. And I was just discussing with Raymond, you know, he's saving right now because when the time comes, he's going to need to be prepared for vehicle insurance, and these things are approaching. He's about to be 14. So he's being prepared to be on top of that stuff. He's already been driving my car, you know, up and down the driveway. The driveway is pretty long, so he will pull it out and take it to the end of the driveway when we're leaving to go somewhere, or reverse it back in, which is not often because we don't go a lot of places. Anyway, it's not often, but it's at least once or twice a week that he'll be able to practice. And also I had him practicing when he was 12 in case of an emergency, should he need to get behind the wheel to get the kids somewhere or to get the kids to safety or whatnot. I did not need him shell-shocked and not knowing how to drive, but yet he's seen it in every Marvel movie and every fast movie of all these race cars, and yet he's panicking just to press the gas and drive the vehicle to get to safety or whatnot. He's been being trained as far as that. So, but now he's more so doing it where he's taking it long distances rather than just in a parking lot. But yeah, so.
Yeah, it's so important for them to prepare and help them to prepare for what could happen. There's so many things that could happen. My parents were in Latvia, this little country in Northern Europe during World War II, where first the Soviets came in, then the Nazis came in, pushed them back, and then finally the Soviets came in. So they had a harrowing experience with dealing with both these armies, these huge armies. They had to enlist, and my uncle enlisted. He was both a Nazi and the Nazis, with the Nazis and the Soviets, the Russians army. He had 2 uniforms in the closet depending on who was occupying the country. So that's an example of being prepared for anything. My parents had to leave on their bicycles with what they could carry to finally, as the war was ending, they retreated with the Nazis as the Soviet occupation came in. They didn't want to live under Soviet occupation. Now we have a situation, what are we going to do when we get a knock on the door and there's doctors, nurses with these needles ready to jab us, or we can't fly or go to the grocery store without having a vaccine certificate. There's a lot of things that we need to prepare the kids for, at that age. So it's a big job, but we can do it. Go to New Kevin Smith's YouTube channel for information. Go to DuaneTheGreatWriter.net. Read his books. There's a lot of resources out there, so you don't have to be lost. There are ways to counter this. To get out of this matrix that we're in. There's a lot of information going around, but nobody really has the answers like we do in terms of how to really make sense of things and to do something for yourself. And thank you, Wendy, for sharing. Always welcome every week for updates and how you're doing with your kids. We usually sing the NUUU again, which is a resource that everybody suggests utilize. It's your connection to something very real. It will help open up your dream visions, and life will show you more, help you guide your way through this life. It goes like this. New, you.
No, you.
No, you.
Wendy?
NUUU.
And Kevin?
You.
Thank you, Wendy, again.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
See you next
Bye.
week.
Thank you.
Yes, next
Have a
week.
great time.
Bye.
See you.